Shiur is dedicated to Nishmas Rachel Bas Reb Chaim Tzvi. In the last year, we discussed the Melechet Kosher. Let's do of the different shittas and Rishonim, and then we'll start to take a look at some very interesting Hlchot applications. So we pointed out that the Gemara tells us that in order to be chayav for kosher, you have to make what looks to be a fancy kind of knot, a kesher shel kayama, a permanent type of knot. This is what the Mishnah tells us: hakosher kesher shel sapanim, the kesher hagamalin. If a person makes a sailor's type of knot or a camel driver's knot, that's going to be an Isser D'Oraisa. The way Rashi understands that is, if you make a knot that's never intended to be undone, a Kesher Shel Kayama, a permanent knot, that's going to be an Isser D'Oraisa. Rashi then further explains that if you make a knot that's not a permanent knot, not going to endure forever, but rather it's a knot that's going to last for a period of time, a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks. In such a case, that's going to be an Isser D'Rabbanan. And then if you make a knot that's going to undo later that day, it's going to be undone later that day, like your typical shoelace knot, that's going to be Mutter Lechatchila. And then within Rashi, there is a detailed machlokas haposkim between the Taz and the Beis Yosef. What's the din if you have a knot that's going to last more than a day and less than a week? If it's going to last more than a week, for sure, Rashi tells us that is going to be an Isser D'Rabbanan. If it's going to last less than 1 day, so that is very clear and for sure is going to be Mutter Lechatchila. That's Mutter Lechatchila. The question is, if you have a knot that's more than a day and less than a week, what is the status of such a knot? Is that going to be Mutter or is that going to be Asr Midrabanan? The Taz takes the position that it has to be, even if it's anything up to a week is going to be permissible. A 6-day knot is going to be mutter. He has the Mekel view within Rashi Shita, and the Beis Yosef says, no, anything more than 1 day is already going to be an Isser D'Rabbanan. And the Mishnah Berurah says that the common practice is to be machmer. Any knot that's going to last for more than 24 hours is going to be an Isser D'Rabbanan. This is the view of Rashi. It all stemmed, as you'll recall, from how we understand the sugya relating to tying shoes, untying shoelaces on Shabbos. We have 3 braisos. One says untying shoelaces on Shabbos is going to be, or untying laces or straps on shoes is going to be an Isser D'Oraisa. A second braisa says Isser D'Rabbanan. A third braisa says Mutter Lechatchila. And Rashi says it all depends on how long the knot is going to last. Long-term, permanent knot, D'Oraisa. A week-long knot, it's Isser D'Rabbanan. A 1-day knot is going to be Mutter Lechatchila. Then we saw the view of the Rif and the Rambam, and they took a slightly different view. They understood that when it comes to that sugya, when is it considered to be a D'Oraisa kind of knot? So that refers to a knot that meets 2 criteria. The Kesher HaSapanim, Kesher HaGamalim, that sailor's knot, is Nisr D'Oraisa because number 1, it's a long-term knot, Kesher Kayama, but number 2, it has another quality to it, and that is a Maisa Uman. It is a craftsman's knot, it is a knot of an expert. And as a result, since there's expertise in the Tsuras HaKesher, in the nature of the knot, plus it is a long-lasting knot, that's going to be Nisr D'Oraisa. If you have one criteria or the other, if it is either a long-lasting knot, even if it's an ordinary knot, or it's a fancy knot, a kesher shel uman, even if it's not a long-lasting knot, that's going to be an Isser D'Rabbanan, writes the Rambam. And finally, if it has neither quality, it's a short-term knot, meaning it's just not a permanent knot. It's not a kesher shel kayama, even if it's going to last a week or 2, or I should say, and it is a non-fancy knot, it's a kesher hedyot, that's going to be mutter lechatchila. Those are the 2 shitos, the core fundamental shitos that you find in the Rishonim. In addition, we pointed out that within the Rif and the Rambam's position, who say that a kesher shel uman, a maisa uman, is considered to be already by itself an Isser D'Rabbanan. So what constitutes a craftsman's knot? What exactly do we mean when we say a craftsman's knot? A knot is a knot. What determines whether it's a knot of an uman or a knot of a hedya? What exactly is the definition? So there we saw the comment, a very important comment of the Hlchot Giborim, and the Hlchot Giborim writes the following chiddush. He says he feels that any time you have a knot that is a kesher amitz, it is a very tight knot, it doesn't matter how fancy the knot is. If it's a tight knot, very difficult to take out, it will endure because the tightness of the knot. So the halacha is that will be treated as a kesher shel uman. That's what characterizes an uman's knot, is the fact that it doesn't come undone very easily. And that, even if it's made by an ordinary individual, has no fancy quality to it, the fact that it's a tough knot to take out, it's going to go ahead and last, qualifies it as a kesher uman. That's the Hlchot Giborim's comment. He adds, therefore, that if a person makes a kesher al gabe kesher, what we would refer to as a regular double knot, that's not a fancy knot, a 6-year-old child can make such a knot, but if it's made in a tight fashion, kesher amitz, hadek, hetev, that it's tough to get out, it's very tight, so in such a case, we're going to treat that, according to the Rif and the Rambam, as a kesher shel uman, and even if it's not a long-lasting knot, you'll be able to undo it, and you will undo it, you intend to undo it, it will still be aser midirabbanan. Those are the basic shitos that you find in the Rishonim. So before getting into the halacha l'maisa, I do want to share with you a very, very striking just kind of issue that builds and that flows from this particular discussion. There is a Gemara in Maseches